Alright, so back to the holding pen room. Now, be it Pedestal, Holiday, Tandem, they're all very similar, but I figure the most quickest thing to do would be to do another Pedestal, although both of these I have, they both have the UHF option, but I believe that tuner just stays behind in the cabinet. So I need to clear a couple things aside to make room to get at it, and let's take a look inside this guy. I'm pulling the knobs off so I can start taking this thing apart, and they came off well enough until I got to this, which is the power volume contrast. That was a little concerning. We shall see. Also notice that that is not the original, nor are the original fasteners on a lot of these sets, but it is nice to have at least one that does have an original screw as a reference as to what they should look like. I'll talk more about screws in a dedicated video. As insane as that may seem, I think it's worth talking about because I would love to find a source for this original type of screw or screws that they used on these sets, be it the back or various other parts. Wow, I'm finding more and more things going on with this set. For one, the power cord has a switch in line, which goes along with that power switch being very likely damaged, and this was the workaround. However, this is pretty ancient, so maybe that failed a long time ago? I don't know, we'll see. I have been able to resurrect them in the past. Well, once I got that off, I noticed that this arm was crazy loose. This one is not. Hopefully that's just a loose screw. Now I'm trying to get the back off. Oh, let's take a look at it first. So it's a 21-inch Pedestal model in blonde with gold trim. Original finish and paint is all in great shape. The screen cover is in excellent condition. So we definitely need the stuff to be, the really important stuff is good. Power switch we can deal with. This back does not want to come off, which is not unusual. The AC interlock on these, you think, oh, they see the cord coming back here, the AC interlock's back here somewhere. No, it's actually over here. I'm going to put the camera down and try to muscle this thing. That's the only thing holding it on right now. But as you can see, this fits flush, so there's not much to grab onto. I can try getting some pressure on here, maybe. Alright, some slow and patient wiggling finally got it loose. It was also hung up on this UHF tuner. I think this has been bent a little bit. You do not want to force these. This is made out of thin, curved plywood. So take your time, be patient, and you will be rewarded, hopefully. So what I can see looks to be very original. Here is the damage control. And let's see, it's not mounted really, so boy, is that really all it is? So there's supposed to be a clip on there. There's a groove cut into the shaft, the bushing here, whatever you call that. And there should be a clip that goes in there that holds it on. Maybe that's the only thing that is missing on that. Maybe we'll find it inside the cabinet. So, VHF tuner, UHF tuner, speaker, control cluster, and the chassis, which, from what I could see, basically looks all original. I'm not seeing a lot of corrosion. Certainly seen a lot worse. Alright, so next up, one, get some better lighting, and two, start disconnecting everything. So we need to unmount the AC interlock, disconnect the speaker, disconnect the tuner, unmount the controls, and so on. Of course, unplug the picture tube. One of the trickier one, maybe the trickiest one to take apart, but again, take lots of reference photos and be patient, and you'll get there. Alrighty, let's take a closer look at the chassis. And, you know, I'm liking what I see. Aside from the potentially damaged power switch volume control, the rest is looking, well, one, no corrosion, cabinet plating's in good shape, looks like it's never been serviced. At least none of the caps have been replaced, the resistors have been replaced. Not the original fusible resistor. Alright, let's take a peek underneath. Yeah, that is stock. That is stock. Down to the corroded filament dropper and broken thermistor. That is what happens to these sets. Glad I didn't bother wasting my time trying to do a power-up test. These discs falling out, in case you ever pop one of these sets open and find this rattling around inside the cabinet. This is the thermistor to inrush current limit the tube filaments. They very often fall out because the joints fail. Well, they can replace it easily enough. And it's very likely between the flaking sand coating and the corrosion leads that this is bad as well. Those are probably the two most common points of failure in these sets. But hey, the rest is it's all original, so I don't see any problems whatsoever. We just have to hope the picture tube is still good. Alrighty, got myself a reference chassis. I'll talk about the set this came from in a separate video. I don't want to confuse things any more than they already are. The important thing is identical circuit boards. I can reference this to get these wires hooked up correctly. As far as the main board goes, very uneventful. Just did the usual, replaced all the old resistors and caps and resistor capacitor networks. Some little boards a buddy of mine had made up. Got a bunch more of them that came in. I'm going to order up more parts to stuff these boards. So, yeah, without further ado, back to the main chassis. Not so fast. I thought this would be identical to the one I just finished, but no, this is actually the number one thing I think that annoys me about working on Predictas, and this chassis in particular, is roundabout production run, I think it was 6. They made some more extreme changes. Earlier production run changes would be something like they would tweak the value of a resistor. But with this production run change, they altered things quite a bit. For example, the earlier revisions, there's another terminal strip down in here. And they rewired the way some of these caps go, which means not only, well, is it a departure from earlier revisions, but it doesn't match the service info, because the service info is for the earlier revisions, and this is the only version there is with the parts placement diagram. So, for example, this terminal strip B7 is not here. It would normally be right in here. And then everything else is different a little bit. So WR1, WR2, two power resistors, WR1, WR2 went from that side to this side. Not major, but hey, where's C8? It's not here. I think they eliminated it. And it goes from there. Capacitor here, no cap here. Cap shown here, no cap there. Cap shown here, no cap there. Cap here, not shown here. Which explains some of the questions I was getting a while back online. I hadn't worked on one of these chassis in a while, and I was getting questions about parts and not matching the service info, and I wasn't sure what they meant. Well, I see what they meant. So what do? Well, if you carefully study the production run changes, they outline it all. But there's a lot to digest. For example, they do say right there, B7, the 3-lugged wiring panel is removed, and an orange wire is added, and so on. But translating the text into what you see was a little tedious, plus it doesn't match the schematic, doesn't match the parts placement diagram, so you need to be careful. So what can you do? Well, in my case, I'm lucky because it's all original, so I just match exactly what's here. So I don't really need to reference that stuff. I just need to pay attention when I clip a cap out, check the value, check where it's hooked up, do it one part at a time, and just tack the new part in right where the old one was, and ignore the service info, unless you run into trouble later on. A few things I may relocate. This is the across the line cap, type X2, right across the AC line. The ones I replace it with are a lot smaller, so I have more freedom about where to put it. The AC line is coming in here, and the way they have it wired in now, it's always in circuit, even if the set is turned off. I may want to relocate it over here where it's after the power switch. And this broken off thermistor, I now see one lug is going here, which is the output of the power switch thermistor. Then there's only the lug that broke off only has one thing going, well, two things going to it. One leg of the thermistor and the other goes over to this point. So if I relocate the thermistor, if it's long enough, the leads are long enough, and I can run it from here to here, it doesn't matter if that lug's broken off, I can just eliminate it entirely. But it also means I can relocate the X2 across the line type cap, I think right between these two lugs. This one's going to the chassis, and this one's going to the other side of the power switch. So I can just plop it in there and eliminate that entirely. Otherwise, I'm just going to replace what I see with a modern equivalent. Alrighty, flash forward. Finished work underneath the chassis, reinstalled the board using my reference chassis as a guide, threw in a bunch of tubes. But I'm going to do two things a little bit different for this first power-up attempt. Now this is just to see if the tubes light up. The fusible resistor has been removed. There'll be no B+. I just want to make sure I have continuity through all the tube filaments. But in order to do that, I need a CRT, right? Because that is part of the tube string. Well, instead of taking it off the set, I just threw in a power resistor into the two terminals for the CRT filament, which is the one in the middle and the one in the bottom right. If you ever have to do this, 10 ohm, 10 watt will do just fine. But we also need a tuner. On the holiday models, the tuner is mounted, well, right here. But in the Pedestal set, it's mounted to the cabinet. And just like with the CRT, I don't want to take it out if I don't have to. So again, I went to my parts chassis, and I just removed the tuner. And plugged it in. It's exactly the same tuner, it's just mounted differently. So I think we're good to go. Put in a new light bulb for the dial lamp. Let's reduce the overhead lighting and give it a try. Looking good. And I wanted to watch this current draw, so I just did a video about the filament string and the current and all that, and how the thermistor works. And yeah, everything is lighting up. I don't know if you noticed, I want to cool down a bit. When I turned it on, the current started out at 0 and it slowly crept up. That's the thermistor in action. It's resisting the current until it warms up. But it didn't stop at 0.6 amps. It went up to around an amp or more, and then it went back down. So even with that thermistor and all the careful engineering, it still does get to about twice the current for a few seconds, and then it goes back down. This is something to be aware of, especially because somebody suggested that, hey, instead of having this pilot light, number 44 bulb, in parallel with one of these power resistors, you could remove it, change the value of that resistor and use an LED across it, a 6.3 volt LED that consumes far less current, except when you turn the sun on and it goes through that power cycle, you're going to end up briefly having about 12 volts across that LED, which may very well blow it out. Anyway, so probably hasn't cooled down completely, but I think enough that you can see the effect. So here we go. That a little cool down more. Alright, the set is completely cooled down now. Let's see what we get. So slow ramp up. That's not as high as I thought. 0.8 amps. Let me settle back down to 0.6 ish. Oh yeah, that's 0.6. I guess it's 0.5. 0.5, 0.55, 0.6. Close enough. Alright, cool. So, next up, I need to plug something into this stuff. But rather than unmount the CRT, which is attached to the cabinet upstairs, and lug it down here and risk damaging it, I got another idea. I'm going to cover that in a separate video, a little trial project, but basically I want to take one of these little 8-inch bench test CRTs and rig it up so I can plug it directly into a Predicta and use it for all future projects. Alright, I believe all the connections are correct. This wire that's hanging loose is ground, and it's already going to a wire that goes to the yoke, which is going to ground, so that's all good. I just popped the top off the flyback high voltage cage here so I could put the high voltage lead. It's easier to go through the top than to that side hole. We have fusible resistor, so let's go for it. Tubes are drawing current. Let's see, this should be brightness. Alright, not seeing anything. Well, let's get a high voltage probe and let's see if we actually have some high voltage next. Yeah, we do. It's alright, so that must mean that there's something up with the pinout on the CRT that I don't have. I don't have something right. It doesn't help that this set had damaged controls on the one that was replaced with something was the brightness control, or the brightness linearity control was kind of mucked with. Oh, I forgot something. Yeah, we have our CRT wires, we have our yoke wire, our plug the plugs in, but there's more to it than that. Where is it? There it is. That is the video wire. Oh man, and it's all buggered up. Nuts. This plugs into the circuit board. They keep the video signal separate. So right now we have nothing on the cathode, so of course this can't possibly work. Just kind of bodge in something here. There should be a female connector on the end of this, and there isn't. It looks like it got broken off and soldered, and it's just a mess. So we're going to have a bit of cleanup to do if this works. Alright, here we go again. Now the other thing, assuming we get all this to work, and really there's no technical reason why it shouldn't, these wires aren't really long enough, so I got a bit of work to do there too. Alright, we have our high voltage back. Try adjusting the brightness again. Nuts. Alright, now it definitely can be a matter of this adapter is not correct. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had to switch G1 and G2, so I traced out the wiring, verified it with continuity checker on my multimeter, and I think I have it right. So I identified the two pins on this, this guy and this guy, heated it up, pulled the wires out, flipped them, put them back down the sleeves, and heated it up. Now, let's see what happens. Ha 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 ha. Fantastic. Alright, this is I guess a dual project video because we're both testing this CRT setup and this chassis to see if it actually works. I have a video signal going in, channel 3 or 4. Let's see if I can tune it in. Huh. This is channel 6 or 5. This might be the wrong knob for this set. Anyway, that looks like something. Alright, I was adjusting the horizontal hold. We don't have enough range, so I need to get access to the coarse adjustment. That was the fine adjustment. To do that, I need a little screwdriver, which was up here and has now disappeared on me. Alright, here we go. These controls have hollow shafts. You need a small jeweler's screwdriver to get down to the secondary controls. So down the center of the horizontal hold is a coarse horizontal hold. It's something there for a moment. Boy, we definitely have an issue with the sync circuits because this is way touchier than it should be. Get that brightness down. Just the contrast. Not doing much. So it's a lot that I can go to 2 different channels and pick this up. Try a different channel on my signal source. Alright, so it's working. We're getting video through, all that good stuff. I think the sync circuits are not functioning correctly, so I'll work on that. I believe I found the problem, or I certainly found a problem. Resistor. I had installed a 150 ohm. It's supposed to be 150K, and that is on the sync separator tube. And I found it very quickly. How? Once again, I used the resistance chart from Sam's Photo Fact. What was the problem? We had no horizontal and vertical sync. The heart of the sync circuit is a 9BR7 sync separator. So I started checking the resistance on the 2 pins, and the very first pin I checked, I had the value was way off, which led me to check, well, what the heck is that connected to? And lo and behold, that resistor. While I was at it, I double checked all the rest of the values, and everything seemed to be okay. I did that very quickly with the aid of an existing board that spare board I'd scrapped out of a set, and there is that resistor, 150K. Now, I used that board when I was restuffing this, but I was doing it late at night, and I must have misread that yellow stripe as a brown stripe, so there we go. Now, the board is installed. I can't get at that spot from the opposite side, so I snipped off the part that was in there and just tacked this in. If this fixes the problem, I'll cut these leads short and solder it down to the stubs of the remaining leads. And that is, in fact, how Philco's service bulletin suggests you repair these boards, is you cut out the old part, leave the stubs of the leads, and tack the new part on top, so you don't have to pull the board. I also rigged up a speaker now, so hopefully we have sound. Alright, let's give it a try. Another minor thing I had noticed is I had a wire, the pilot light dial lamp wire was kind of wrapped around the fine-tuning shaft, and it wasn't letting me rotate the fine-tuning knob to its full extent. Ooh. Much better. Horizontal linearity is, or sorry, vertical linearity is horrible, but we can take care of that. Let's see, that's brightness, horizontal sync. Yeah, looks pretty well. A little twitchy. Vertical hold. So, yeah, it's pretty good. Vertical hold on these sets just stinks. The circuit design they used, not so good. Vertical linearity, vertical height, vertical hold. Generally, if you touch any of those, you lose your vertical sync. It has a very short rotation on that knob where it will actually lock in. Let's see if we can adjust that linearity. The linearity, that is the control that is so often bad in these sets, and there's a hacked-in replacement in this set. So there, I adjusted the linearity, and we lose sync. That shouldn't happen. But everybody's still flat top. too much height. Adjust the height, and what happens? We lose sync. Something else I should probably be cognizant of. That looks pretty good. Is that I'm using this little baby CRT, so when it comes to just the height and width, I really need to wait until I have a full-size CRT to bother doing those fine adjustments. Hey, that looks pretty good. Let's check out the fine-tuning. Let's get the volume up a little bit.
So you can wake up refreshed. Juno, the brand I trust. If you think all pots are exactly the same, think again.
Yeah, it's looking real good.
It wicks caches 90% faster and absorbs even more from 100%.
Time to put this guy back together. I brought the empty cabinet and CRT down into the workshop. We have the fully restored chassis here, which worked with our bench test CRT rig. So let's start putting this together. This had a very good, strong CRT, so I have high hopes this is going to be a really well-performing set. Alrighty, here is our cabinet and our restored chassis. Now, if you recall, this handle is super loose, so we're going to pop off this end cap. They snap in, and they haven't been removed. Well, surprised they've been removed since the set was made. Be a little tricky to get off. If you can't get a thumbnail under there, use a pocket knife or some other thin metal to slowly work your way around. Eventually it'll pop off and there'll be a 5/16 inch nut inside. It should take care of that. Before I reinstall the chassis, I want to clean up all the dust bunnies. Let's get a nice microfiber cloth here. I'll get a little shop vac in here too. The speaker also carefully. And pop a couple new tubes into the tuner. So when it was up on the bench, we used a substitute tuner. I'll find out if the real one is good or not. I reinstalled the chassis using my detailed reference photos, which turned out to be a big help. And what do you know? It turns on. Now, I had it working up on the bench, so I was pretty sure as long as I didn't really screw up, it would work when I hooked it back up. I don't have a signal source yet, but this is all good. It turns on, and the CRT is lit up. I'm going to hum out of the speaker. Now, I tried to fix the power switch. I was unable. So we'll just stick with the power switch built into the cord. The owner is fine with that. So we're missing a knob. Now, at last year's early TV convention, I managed to get some Predictapalooza knobs. It was not cheap. They are new old stock replacements, some of them still in the shrink wrap. So we're missing just one on this set, just one of these white knobs. I do have both of those guys, I think. Yeah, we have both of these. And the UHF knob we have, but it's missing the center metal. And I think I now have maybe 4 of these UHF knobs in total that are all missing that part. It's also missing, I didn't realize that, it's missing the inner portion too. That would show you the UHF channels. Okay, power up test with a signal source connected, I hope. Still gotta fix a loose screw. Let's see what channel am I on. Channel 4.
Tito whips her into the ropes. Exodus reverses it. Ice cold with a... Look at that. The underhanded tactics of Team Exile coming into play there.
That was in full view.
Tuner's a little touchy.
They get a warning right now.
Utter disregard for the referee's ruling.
But hey, there we go. I will Now that's all together, I have to go through and adjust all the settings and linearity and get the brightness and contrast and everything set up right and such. So we still got work to do, but the hard part is done. That is one touchy tuner. Alrighty, alrighty. Woohoo! It's nice to have a set that has a pretty good CRT in it too. It's pretty brightly lit down here, and there's no issue whatsoever with watching it. I was hoping to get this set done in one part, but I think I better go with two. I want to cover this properly because wobbly head units are a common problem. I've been seeing it in more and more sets, so I think it's worth going over. And, you know, I think I'll take another whack at repairing that power switch. And I'm going to need to pull that tuner and clean it properly, and that's something else I haven't really shown before. So, be looking for all that in part 2. Head removal, cleaning, tightening, tuner servicing, and possibly a power switch repair. And then, of course, the final view of it all put together. Thanks for watching.